Yeah, that's my one piece of advice for the world. Make your books more gay.
And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another excellent episode of Professional Idiocy. I'm your host, James. I use he, they pronouns. As with me always is my co-host, Barat.
Hey, I use he, him pronouns, and you know me already.
As always, for our Paizo interviews, we have invited Tylen to come back.
Hey, that's me. I don't really know why I'm here on every Paizo interview, but I'm not complaining.
No one loves
I
the
use
system quite like you.
I'm just the power gamer, all right. I use he, they pronouns also. So yeah.
Awesome. And for our very special guest with us today, we have the wonderful Avi Kool.
Hi, I'm Avi. I use they, them pronouns. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Just start off nice. How you doing today?
Doing very well. I'm excited to be here. I had a lovely afternoon with beautiful weather. I got to walk around and photograph some ducks, which is really all I'd like to do during my free time. It's an exaggeration, but yeah, doing well.
I love
Awesome.
ducks.
I'm glad. I'm starting off strong in the weird note. What did I do
Oh.
today? I went and photographed ducks.
There's
Shit, all
nothing
right.
wrong with ducks. I mean,
can sit and
great
watch-
one.
I can sit and watch videos of ducks like drinking out of Starbucks cups all day. I don't know why that's a trend, but I love it.
That's great.
All right. So hopping into it, can you give us like an overview of like what your day-to-day looks like when working at Paizo?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I start work, the first thing I do is check in with the team. As senior editor, I oversee a lot of what everyone else is doing, not in a super official, like, let me check your projects and go through your tasks, but just try to keep an eye on how progress is going for each book that we're working on, because we're always working on a million books at once. I'll see if there are any meetings. And then when I get settled in, I like to edit on paper when I can. So I print out whatever I'm working on. Right now, I'm working on a Lost Omens book, so I have my stack of printouts. I'm going through editing with my different color-coded pens. Each one has a different meaning, of course. And I'll be around throughout the day to help out the other editors, because my position is senior editor, so I do a little bit of oversight in that sense. I help out the manager. When he's out, I'll do his duties. So that can be approvals, which is going over the final product after it's been through editing and doing a last look at it before it goes to the printer. And sometimes I'll be working in Microsoft Word or working in InCopy, and pretty much just I spend most of my day editing. I'm very lucky that I don't have a job that has a lot of admin. I can do editing for most of the day. I can talk to my coworkers, ask them questions. I have a great relationship with the developers and the designers and the art team, who are all amazing. And so we have a lot of collaboration back and forth throughout the day. Sometimes it's directly about a product. Sometimes we'll just be kind of brainstorming in general about things that we want to see coming up. So that's about it on an average day.
And has anything in that day-to-day process changed since, all the recent big news of, the process of unionizing and since it was formed?
No, actually, not at all. We, on our daily life, I'd say it's completely the same right now. Um, aside, like, union conversations happen, but I'm normally only going to be participating in union conversations like on my free time, because if I'm spread back and forth between a bunch of different topics when I'm at work, it's just impossible to focus. So I try to keep union stuff outside of work hours, which as I say that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably, you should keep your non-work stuff outside of work hours. So that should be a given. But yeah, I wouldn't say that the union has a effect on my day-to-day life at this point. And I don't expect that it will, because what it's really there for is to support us in terms of our work situation, and our, like, that negotiation is not going to happen as a part of my everyday life.
And you've already You've already got a shit ton of stuff to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think like it's way too early to see if it will change like our work routine, but other than maybe slowing things down a bit, which that's a conversation that's not just a union conversation. We're all talking about like, what is an appropriate pace, what is an appropriate kind of way to build our schedules, that kind of thing. Maybe that will change. I don't know. Maybe not. We're always going to be a deadline driven company because we put out books monthly. And so that's just kind of part of the Paizo life. And it's most of the time not bad as long as everyone's around and you've got good energy. Then the deadline based schedule is, you get used to it.
Mhm.
So, speaking of the union, what are your thoughts on like where the union is at currently and where you like think it's headed?
Yeah, so the union is in the middle of putting together a survey to collect information on what people want for the collective bargaining process. So that is in the works right now. It hasn't actually gone out yet. And what that's going to do is the answers to that are going to be what the bargaining committee, who is currently not chosen yet, I believe. The bargaining committee is going to take those to the Paizo executives and be like, here are the list of concerns, demands, thoughts, problems, hot topics from the employees. And these are the things that we want to focus on in collective bargaining. So after that, then they'll actually sit down with the executives and have that conversation. It's a little bit of a process because, as I said, we are all still working full time. And so doing all this union stuff happens on our off hours. And I'm not like extremely involved in that personally, but I try to keep up with it and try to be in the know and helpful as much as possible. So that is where the union is at right now.
No, it's definitely great to see that the union is still like doing well. And even with like the acceptance, like it still has momentum, like going
Yeah,
through it, like seeing the updates from the Twitter of the United Paizo Workers, which you can find on Twitter, obviously. It's just amazing to see like the progress with every tweet.
I think that we all really, really want this to go well. And a lot of people have put their hearts into it. And so, as long as people are really committed to improving, which is what this is all about, then I think that the momentum will continue.
What would be like your favorite part about editing a book?
Ooh, good question. I love diving into mechanics. I really enjoy technical editing. Like prose editing can be fun, and I enjoy that as well. But like one of my favorite things is editing classes because you can really just dive super deep and you imagine yourself playing the class and trying to figure out how would I play this, what problems would I run across? How is the organization of information presented? Does it make sense on a first read? One of the things that I really like to dive into is making sure that things make sense on a first read. So when I go through and edit something like that, I have dozens of questions. The designers are very patient with me. I think they appreciate it because it's all for the purpose of making things better in the long run. And it really is fun to get to kind of not tear them apart because that sounds a lot more destructive, but really get my like sink my teeth into it. I like the crunchy stuff. One of the reasons I like Pathfinder is because I do like a crunchier game, and editing rule books is one of the most mentally intensive, though I'd say editing adventures is more mentally intensive. But rule books for me are the perfect amount of mentally intensive because you can really sink your teeth in, but you can also really focus on one thing. Unlike adventures where you have to sink your teeth in and you have to be focusing on 700 different things all at once. So I'd say that's probably the most fun part of my day is anytime I get to edit mechanics.
Writing and editing like mechanical stuff and like crunchy stuff. I agree that it's fun, but I like one of the difficulties I have with it is that you constantly have to be cross-referencing with other like existing things in the system
Yes.
to make sure you're not like stepping on this like archetype's toes or like making something that already exists work differently than it should, something like that.
Yeah. Fortunately, that's more in the purview of the designers.
Hmm.
So I don't have to worry about that as much.
Yeah.
When I'm writing, obviously, I'm going to be doing a lot of research into what are the existing similar things and using them as balance reference points. That can be super helpful when you're writing those kind of game design type things, is using reference points from different feats, different items, different whatever at that same level. And that way you can see what items or what feats or whatever already exist, so you're not copying them, but also you have a base point for what the power level should be. So it's definitely like 700 tabs on Archives of Nethys. I keep saying 700. That's my number of the day. You've got all your tabs open of Archives of Nethys. You've got your books out, your PDFs.
Archives is such a useful tool for that sort of thing.
They're amazing. Everyone should support them on Patreon. If you don't support them on Patreon, everyone go do that.
Absolutely. And speaking of writing, I just wanted to ask real quick, how much writing do you do? And if you want, you can talk about some of the things that you've written or are writing.
Yeah, I do a handful of freelance assignments a year, not very many because I frankly don't have the energy to do more. I did 3 freelance assignments this year of varying lengths. The first one, oh man, now let's see if I can even remember. I guess actually, I did 2 this year. I did Grand Bazaar, and I am also writing for, or I finished writing for a book that has not have its writers list announced yet, but when is this going to go live?
Uh,
A
next
day or
week.
two usually.
Yeah,
Oh,
Okay,
next few
Yeah,
in
days.
that case,
next week.
I don't want to step
You
on
can tell.
any
You can
toes.
tell us. You can tell us.
give
I
us
did-
the industry
It's
secrets.
we could edit it out later. Wink, wink. You know, just
Oh, please.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you, and you got to promise me that if this hasn't gone live on the blog yet, you'll wait.
we
But
could edit this section out. How about that?
Okay.
And
I'll
if
just
it's
put. See,
if it's
I'll
not
do what I
live
did
by
for the last
Monday,
episode.
then
I'll do what I
you
did.
know.
See, I'll take this little TV sensor, and I'll just put it right over.
Oh
Put like
yeah,
a-
we've done
Put
that
like a
at times.
confiscated by the FBI. sign over.
this is supposed to go on the blog within the next couple days, which is the
Oh,
only
okay.
reason I'm going to tell you, because the blog post has already been edited and scheduled. I did get to write for Dark Archive, so that is
Nice.
probably the most exciting thing that I've ever gotten to write for. I can't tell you what I wrote, but it was what I wrote was a first for me, and a section that to me is near and dear to my heart in terms of what kind of creepy, nerdy interests I have. So
That's
The
awesome.
entire psychic class. It's just the entire psychic.
yes, that was me. It's weird. They let me on the design team for a minute. Yeah, no, and then for Grand Bazaar, I've talked a little bit on other places, but I got to write one of the shopkeepers, Arjan, who's the tattoo artist, and I wrote the magical tattoos as well as a handful of worn items, and that was super fun. And then before that, I wrote for Bestiary 3, I wrote the Nosferatus, and that was another kind of fun deep dive into my super geeky horror interests, because that's like one of my number one niches. Is I'm a huge horror nerd.
So, speaking of Nosferatu,
Yeah, I was about to ask that one.
can you talk about your mindset going into it and how you wanted to make them like stand out compared to other types of vampires that you see in different forms of media?
Yes, absolutely. So I wanted them to be really more true to the source material than the first edition Nosferatu was. The first edition Nosferatu is fine, but I feel like the main difference between the first edition Nosferatu and just a regular Morai vampire is just they can't create spawn, and they're super old, and they look like a rat. And that's about it in terms of, like, there's some minor mechanical differences, but essentially they're very, very similar to the standard vampire. But one of the things that I love about the original movie, the 1992 movie, is it's very heavily influenced by the Spanish influenza. And when the vampire arrives uh, from his castle and he arrives to terrorize the people of whatever town it's set in, it's in the book it's London, but the movie is, it's German. So you've got all these newspaper clippings that the movie shows, like saying plague has come to the town and rats, and people are dying of plague, and it's using that as a metaphor for the vampire. And I love that because it's very topical right now. And I also wanted to keep that as, because it is a core part of the movie that's gotten dropped from pretty much every single adaptation of Nosferatu. I know there's a really obscure old Pathfinder adventure that does incorporate plague into the Nosferatu, but it's not in the bestiary entry because the first edition bestiaries have very little in the realm of flavor. That's one of the things that we got to expand on in second edition, is putting way more flavor in the bestiaries, which is awesome. So what I did was I reached out to Liz Liddell and James Jacobs, and I was like, hey, I want to go off script a little bit. And they were both super supportive. James Jacobs is also a huge horror nerd, as I think everyone knows. And so he was like, oh, actually, I wish this could have been in the first edition version. So he was happy to include that. So that's why you see that there is a bunch of plague themed abilities in second edition Nosferatu that are not in first edition. There's also rat themed abilities, like Nosferatu disperses into rats instead of dispersing into bats. And that is a reference to the 1979 Werner Herzog adaptation of Nosferatu, which incorporated, no joke, over 10,000 rats in that movie.
My God.
Live rats?
Live rats. Actual horrible animal cruelty scandal.
How
Oh my God.
Yes. Yes. 11,000.
I would hate to be on that set. Just
Christ.
the idea of being around that many. I don't care if they're in cages or wherever they are. I don't need to be there that many.
It's just a room. I'd like to imagine there's just a room on set just filled with rats.
They open the door and they all just like flood out.
That's literally basically what happens in the movie. So what happened was they filmed most of this movie in this beautiful historic Dutch town called Delft. And Delft is one of the most historic towns in the Netherlands. And when the city of Delft found out that Werner Herzog wanted to release 11,000 rats in their town square, they said, absolutely not. And so they had to find a less fancy city with a similar looking town square to release these rats in. And it is just like a blanket of rats. And so I couldn't not incorporate that because it's such an incredible visual that really stuck in my mind, because it is legit horrifying. You don't want to see that.
I watched what rats. I watched what rats could do when I was first playing Dishonored, and I got a little bit afraid. It would be, I'm going to guess it would be a correct assumption to say that you love horror movies.
Yes, very much.
How much of that influences your work on Pathfinder and Starfinder?
A lot. I also did a horror monster for Starfinder Alien Archive 4 called The Scene, which is the prompt that I got from Joe Piscini is just observer effect alien. And that could be kind of anything. I think probably the most famous observer effect monster is the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who, which, the whole premise is it appears, it does different things depending on whether or not you're looking at it. But I didn't want to copy that because it's, that's so well known.
That's been done a few times by not even just the Weeping Angels, but
exactly. So what I did for that one was I temporarily became a physics person. I'm not normally, but the observer effect is a real physics phenomenon. And so I wanted to focus in on how that actually works and try to adapt it to Starfinder mechanics. That's hard, by the way.
Are you telling me you went into the quantum physics world?
Yes. It's like nobody has ever researched quantum physics for their role-playing game before. Oh, maybe that's not true. There's some really big nerds out there in this world.
Oh,
There's
who
gotta
was
be
it?
one
Was
Star
it-
Trek TTRPG nerd who is just so dedicated to figuring out warp that they just
Yes.
It's not quite quantum physics. It was Jess that was super into like planar
Yes.
bullshit, right?
Yes. Jess
We
is
had-
the
we
planar
had-
queen.
Yeah, we had her on here a little while ago,
Nice.
and she went into some detail about the planar weird shit that she got into.
the drift
Oh,
crisis looks so interesting, and I so want to run it at some point.
yeah. I
Yeah,
can't
we
wait to
heard-
see more
We heard
of
a
it.
lot of things, like reality TV shows, boy bands,
That interview made me want to play Starfinder really
a
badly.
whole lot of stuff. Yeah.
Jess is one of the coolest people I know. So that does not surprise me that she had all sorts of awesome things to say.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's fun to get to dive into those niche topics. So for that one, I did get to blend horror because I wanted it to be as creepy as possible, and science. They definitely, my first draft, they were like, this is way too complicated. And so I had to trim it down and down and down and down into something that was actually playable at the table. And I think they actually even made it even further less complicated after I turned in the final, because that was kind of a tall order I gave myself. But yeah, that creature, the art in that, but if you haven't looked at Alien Archive 4, I recommend it because it's a great book. But the art that the artist came up with for this creature is just terrifying. It's got like this messed up face. It's really long and gaunt, and then at the end of its limbs, it has essentially like giant like spikes that look like nails, as in like fingernails, not like hammer and nails. So, and like weird cuticles, and it's so creepy, and I could not have
So
been more
cool.
delighted. When the art came in and I got to show my coworkers, I made sure to show everybody just to see their reactions, because everybody was so freaked out by it.
The artists you guys pick are crazy amazing.
Oh, there's so many good artists that work on our books.
I'm-
It's one of the most, I forgot to say, one of the most exciting things of our day is when we get new art in. That is always super fun to be able to go through new art, especially, oh my God, when you get a Wayne Reynolds cover in and it's like, nobody has seen this before. This is so magical. I have seen the
Definitely.
cover of Dark Archive.
Oh, I forgot, because the one they have right now is a stand-in image, right?
That is a stand-in. I'll just tease you with that. I can't tell
Is
you
it
anything
is
about
it good?
Oh, it's dope.
Oh man.
I'm so looking forward to Dark Archive. The idea of just X-Files and Pathfinder is something I've been so looking forward to for a while
Yeah.
now. And well, the Thaumaturge is very interesting of a class, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Thaumaturge.
I forgot to say things that I did this year. I did create the iconic for the Thaumaturge, so that's my baby.
That was you?
That
That's
was me.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love them.
That's
Oh,
a win.
thank you.
I
Yeah.
love just the sheer amount of random stuff they have on them.
I know. This is a character that can do anything, but maybe takes a couple actions to find the correct implement. That's not a class feature, but it could be.
Oh.
I think I might introduce that as a mechanic. If you're encumbered, you have to spend an additional interact action just to figure out where stuff is.
Yes. Yes, you can do more things, but you take time to find them. That could be an archetype.
The Thaumaturge in
Design
general
team,
is just,
you know what you got to do.
Yeah.
boy. The Thaumaturge in general is just all about having a bunch of random shit on you at all times.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with James Case figuring out what we wanted to do for that, because both of us are fans of John Constantine. And so we wanted something that was kind of inspired by that, but also as a character, just fundamentally extremely different. We didn't want the iconic to be John Constantine, the Pathfinder iconic.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool in some ways, But yeah, but we had that same kind of shared love. Like, especially, I've read a ton of the comics, but James is not as much of an American comics person, but we both love the Keanu Reeves movie. Most people only like the comic or the movie. I say, why pick? They're both great.
You could take the third option and go with the one from Legends of Tomorrow. I mean,
I
he does a
love
great
him
job.
too. He's great too.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
personally, the DCAU, the animated ones with Constantine are probably my favorite like version of him. Like Keanu
oh,
Reeves,
okay.
great job, but
Keanu Reeves is this very different version of the character, but it's a really fun version because I love Keanu and I enjoy pretty much everything he does. It's a good movie. It's very atmospheric. So yeah, that was kind of all the stuff that we were throwing in. We were trying to, and you got a little bit of Van Helsing, obviously. Um, we got to put together a variety of different influences, but try to make something that was unique.
awesome. So, personally, I kind of want to go back into you mentioned writing for Grand Bazaar,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned when writing Arjan for Lost Omens Grand Bazaar, you talked about how on Twitter you went on a giant thread on how your Jewish heritage and has influenced your writing of the character. Could you go a little bit in depth with that about
Yeah.
how your culture affected how the character turned out?
Yeah. So Arhan is inspired by my Sephardic ancestors. So both of my mom's parents are mixed Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews. And so the Sephardic Jews are, if you don't know, they are the ones who the Spanish Inquisition happened to back in the day. That's kind of like the definition of the ethnic group is the descendants of people, of Jews who were persecuted in the Spanish Inquisition. And so Arhan's story is attempting to be a metaphor for the Spanish Inquisition, which Cheliax stands in very well for.
That's
So, yeah, I was like trying to figure out a religious analog. It just doesn't work because there's no monotheism in the Pathfinder world. So I picked Shellen because for me, like my Jewish upbringing was very much centered around music. I played in a klezmer band growing up. I played the saxophone and I did choir and all that good stuff. But it's very much like a joyful kind of tradition. And so I had his family be Shellenites. And then the way the way religion works in Cheliax in the setting is mostly a they will be tolerant until you cause trouble kind of situation. And so the idea that I had was that reminded me of how in Spain the way it worked for a while was, okay, well, you can exist as a Jewish person if you practice Christianity, like if you claim to convert. But so a lot of people were pretending to be Christians even though they were living secretly as Jews. And so that's what Arhan's family is kind of doing with their Shellonite beliefs. But of course, they get caught. And so they are forced to flee. And that is how they end up in Absalom. So yeah, I wanted to reflect that because that's how that was my family history, my family that happened to them hundreds of years ago, and that's how they ended up where they ended up. And I also thought, we don't have very many. There's a lot of refugees in the setting, as in, like, this is a thing that happens to people, like, the nation of Lastwall. Everyone who used to live there is now a refugee, but we don't have very many characters who we actually spotlight who are refugees. And there's a lot of refugees in the world right now, and there's a lot of refugee crises in the world right now. And so I hope that people can see that and identify with it, even if it's drawn on ancient history. It's not an ancient issue.
I think that's awesome. Actually, that's
Oh, thank you.
bringing in. I didn't know that Sephardic Jews were defined by the Spanish Inquisition. But honestly, I didn't know a whole lot about Judaism before I met James, who has shown me a shit ton of stuff about Judaism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you saying the Torah in the background wasn't a dead giveaway?
Yeah, thank you. I that was my hope that would resonate with people. because there is a lot of history that can go really well in these game settings, which are, Pathfinder's setting of Galarian is so diverse,
That's
and it needs to be filled with diverse stories.
that's part of the reason why I love the setting so much. Like there are a lot of cultures in Galarian and its lore that just don't really get represented as much as I think they should.
Absolutely. That's
And
one of the
it's
things we're always looking to do. Like oh wait, sorry, you were not done talking. Finish your
no.
sentence.
I was just about to say I love all the allegories for stuff like a bunch of Southeast Asian cultures and stuff. It's awesome. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say one of the things that was so exciting to me about Guns and Gears is how much it focused on Arcadia, which everyone loves Arcadia.
Love
but
Arcadia.
It's gotten so little attention because it got barely any treatment in first edition, hardly at all. And then we've been trying to figure out how to get more and more of it in second edition. And so putting a huge section about Arcadia in Guns and Gears was, I think, perfect because it does have that whole beast gun culture, which is totally rad and not something that exists in any other setting. And that was really fun to get to dive deep. And I hope we can dive deeper because there's much, I mean, we could easily put out a 350 page source book on Arcadia and we would have more than enough stuff to say. I hope that someday we can.
One thing I really enjoy about second edition is that you guys are looking at a lot more places that typically were either not really ignored but not heavily touched on. That is so like rich with culture. I think the biggest example recently that I've seen was the Milwaukee Expanse with the book coming out, Strength of 1,000, Age of Ashes. Oh, well, if you play Age of Ashes far enough into the story, you get there.
We're there right now in our campaign.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
we
the
kind of
Wonky
have
Expanse book is, I can't even tell you how awesome it feels to have made a book like that. Like, I'm so freaking proud of every single person who worked on that book because, like, the writers put together something amazing. The developers turned it into this beautiful, cohesive piece that really just fits together so well as this incredible world. And then getting to edit it was such a joy and such a privilege to be able to go in there and just kind of immerse myself in that really, really vibrant world. And every part of that book is so different because it represents so many different like origin sources, and all of that reflected in this book turns into this like really beautiful tapestry of different cultures, heritages, different types of fantasy, different fantasy genres within one book. And I just love it so much, and it makes me so happy that it's been successful because it's nerve-wracking. We really put ourselves out there in a kind of precarious position to put that book out, because if it's not popular, then people are going to, the fear is people will point at this and say, oh, well, diverse books don't sell. That was the scary thing about like, how are people going to react? But it has done really well and been so popular. So I can't even say how happy I am about how that book has done.
I think part of the reason why it did well and why that bad situation that you were trying to avoid didn't happen, and this might not be a thing exclusive to well, I don't know what I'm talking about. Paizo has always been like, from what I've seen, Paizo has always been a very diverse and inclusive company, which feels weird to say, but
I think that's true in some ways and not true in others. Yeah. Paizo has always had women at the company. That is for sure the truth. The history of Paizo has been pretty white. I would say Paizo is still a very white company, unfortunately, which is frustrating and challenging, and something we're actively working on trying to figure out how to change that, because it continues to be a problem. Paizo has changed and improved in a lot of ways, but it continues to be a white company predominantly, like probably something like 80% white at Paizo, and that's not great. So I love Paizo. I love working at Paizo, and I want Paizo to be the best place that it can be. So I don't say that to bash Paizo, and I don't want people to come out of this interview with being like, oh man, Avi Kool said that Paizo sucks because it's so white, because that's not true at all. But it's definitely always been true that people wanted to incorporate different cultures. And there's been good intentions, I think, since the very beginning of having a diverse setting. There were definitely some false steps, especially at the beginning, of people not really knowing how to do that because it was a very white group of people. And those people are not like assholes. They're people who have learned a lot in the past 20 years. And I'm proud of all of them because it's hard to push yourself to grow when you're in a situation of you've always been surrounded by a world that works in a certain way. Like a lot of the people from the early Paizo days are from Wizards of the Coast, or they originally worked on Dungeons and Dragons, or are otherwise, you know, part of the quote unquote old school, which is, of course, the old school is going to be a very white space. So, yeah, everyone's, I think, come a really long way, but there's still lots more work to do.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable commenting on this, one of the things that was coming out during the whole Paizo scandal right before Gen Con was their treatment of transgender employees and the complete lack of transgender representation in the company. I can't really speak to like in-game. I've seen a lot of like trans characters, or at least non-binary characters. Terracotta from Ruby Phoenix being my
Yeah.
number one.
Nice.
What was the name of the non-binary Nolan Strength of 1,000? I love them so much.
Oh, it's like
I'm
ant
not
something.
sure. Anchor Root is
Anchor Root.
not
Wait, is it not?
non-binary.
Yeah.
Anchor Root is I think just identifies as a girl, but
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
Still adorable.
I might be misremembering that because I edited, I think, 4 of 6 volumes of that book. So it's very possible that that was said in one of the volumes that I didn't edit, but I'm not sure. I love Anchor Root. Anchor Root is the best. The adorable little ant knoll who's so anxious about everything and has a pet chicken.
Yep, you're right. She uses she/her pronouns and identifies as a girl. That was me misremembering.
No worries. There are a lot of trans and non-binary characters. But anyway, you were in the middle of asking a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was
No
wondering.
worries.
No problem. Look, if I could talk about Anchor Root, I might not be playing it right now, but hopefully we can throw up an image of this adorable NPC because
Yes.
it's lovable.
I know Eli loves them too.
Anchor
Loves it
Root
too.
is the hero that we all need.
The question was kind of leading to what were going to be your thoughts on, and you might not know right now, or if the union has discussed this, but part of diversifying the company would be part of the scandal was taking was there wasn't enough like transgender people or people who just either don't identify on the gender spectrum or whatever you identify as. Surface level thoughts on it.
So I'm actually super excited. I think we made a huge step the other day in taking a really firm stance on transphobia on the forums. And that didn't come from the union, that came from the blog team, where basically we put together, we were like, we want to do some kind of trans day or trans week of Trans Awareness Week.
Remembrance?
Trans Day of Remembrance and Trans Awareness Week are 2 different phrases that I just almost made one phrase. But
I remember seeing.
Yeah, we wanted to have something because we do like to put out blog posts for different holidays and cultural events and different things like that. But there's been a huge problem with transphobia on the forums, and that had kind of spilled out of control. And so we're like, how can we pair a blog post with some actual concrete action so it's not just words? And so what we did was we used this blog post to announce our new moderation policy about transphobia, which is it basically, if you see it, email, don't just flag it, email customer service directly with the heading intolerance, and the person who did it will get permanent suspension. And so that, I feel really, really good about that. I think that's a huge step forward, and it's something that just kind of happened at the spur of the moment of like, what are we going to do? We need to do something. We need to have some kind of way of helping this really kind of disastrous situation that's arisen. And so that I thought was a great first step. We could always use more trans people at the company. There are a number of trans people at the company currently, but there could always be more. But definitely step one needed to be make sure that it was actually a safe space. And so I feel very proud of everyone involved in that decision. That was a lot of that work came from James Case. I'll shout him out. He did a really great job spearheading that.
That reminds me of the recent time that Games Workshop had to put out like a PSA to their players about the Warhammer faction, the Imperium of Man, because people started to idolize them, and it was becoming very. There was like a problem with toxicity in the community.
Yeah.
And it's really awesome to see like developers like that take a stand and try and improve elements or toxic elements of their community by directly interacting with said community.
Yeah, it's so important because it affects the fans, it affects staff, it affects culture in general, like the gaming culture in general. And so it's super, super important that the forums are not a place where that kind of toxicity is left to fester.
Sure.
And it's always a challenge because the moderators are the customer service team, and that's only like maybe 10% of their job. The majority of their job is making sure you get your books, or if there's an issue with your order, resolving that. And those two things are, a full-time job on their own. And so then having to moderate the forums on top of that, it can be really challenging. So the whole point of this new procedure is if you email the customer service team directly, they're actually going to see it right away versus having a huge backlog of flags that may or may not be relevant, may or may not be duplicates, may just be random stuff that is not actually really super important. So yeah, hopefully this will make the customer service team's life a little bit easier. I know that it's been weighing on them to see the forums in a rough place, and they are awesome. I cannot shout out the customer service team enough. They're such cool people, and like every single one of them cares so much and works so hard. So yeah, everything that we can do to support them is a win in my book.
Definitely. I think every time I've ended up emailing customer service about one thing or another, like managing my subscription or whatever, it's been just so nice because they're always just so friendly and they feel so human when they're talking with you. It's truly just great job on their end.
Yeah. I mean, they're very kind, loving nerds. What more could you ask for at a game company?
More nerds.
More nerds.
That's a trend with a lot of Paizo, like people from Paizo, that not even just in interviews so far. Like everybody from Paizo just seems so warm. I
thought you were gonna say everyone's a nerd.
Well,
like,
yeah, they are.
They
they definitely are.
But secondary to that.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're
right.
right.
Friendly.
I think there is a real a culture of enthusiasm and friendliness at Paizo, which I love. I've definitely worked in places where people show up and they clock out, and that's kind of the extent of their interaction with the life there. But everyone is so kind, and I made so many really, really good friends at Paizo. Like I didn't know when I first started as a temp. I was straight out of college and I was like, am I going to be way younger than everyone? Am I going to be able to make friends? Is everything going to be super awkward because I'm really intimidated by all these people who make these amazing books? And that was in 2018. And now the people I work with are like people I used to be scared of. Like, don't tell Logan, I used to be scared of him. Because he's
Don't tell Logan, I'm still afraid of him.
Because he's very direct, and it can be difficult to know exactly how if you have anxiety like me, it's like, oh god, is it just what's going on? I don't know what's happening. But I mean, Logan knows this. This is not new information to him.
The people who are very blunt, if they give a compliment, they mean it that time.
Exactly. And now he's like one of my favorite people. So they're like there are so many amazing, friendly, warm, kind people at the company, and I think that's what makes the company so good, and that's what makes the books so good. Is people really, really collaborate with each other and have a lot of respect for each other and what we all do.
It's awesome.
Well, as an immediate change of pace.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I was wondering, so when you're obviously you work on Pathfinder Starfinder day in, day out, does this ever like bleed into your own like home life? Like when I don't know if you play Pathfinder outside of company time or even inside company time, you just don't want to say it.
Yeah, I
How
mean,
does
I
that
do.
affect one to the other?
I do play Pathfinder, not as often as I would like, but at least once a month, because I play on a game with the No Direction Network, GM'd by Luis Loza, called Valiant. And that is, we try to meet every month, though sometimes it goes a little longer. I wish I could play more, but it's hard to have a campaign going in the pandemic. All the in-person campaigns that I was in are on indefinite hiatus. None of them made the switch to, none of them made the switch to online campaigns. So it can be uh, also hard to find time. Like there are definitely times where we have said like, let's do a game, but nobody has the energy to GM. Is I think the main problem. Everyone wants to play. Nobody has the time and energy to GM. But I really like playing Pathfinder outside of work hours. Pathfinder Second Edition, in particular, is my favorite game that I've ever played. I think it's super fun, and I wish I could play more of it. Sometimes I do feel like Pathfinder invades my sleep. It's like it is a huge, it is a huge, huge, huge part of my life on so many levels.
Probably not in the same way, but I definitely feel that I'll just be sitting in bed and suddenly I'll realize, oh yeah, samurai could probably or ninja could probably work as like a monk subclass type thing.
Yeah, it could. It could.
Oh,
Who
that's the worst
knows?
time. It's like
You
you're
just come up
about
with
to
the
knock
best
out
ideas when you
it.
don't, or you're not anywhere to write them down.
For me, it's like, oh God, I made the wrong call on that edit. And
Oh
it'll be like
no.
2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh God, I have to write this down and tell Ron in the morning or whatever that I gave him the wrong answer to a
Oh.
question or, things like that. It'll definitely haunt me in my sleep sometimes.
Circling back to that, how late have you done one of those? Like, as close to publishing date. How late have you done those?
Yeah,
Oh,
you had any saves?
we
Last
have
like,
absolutely made changes the day that it goes to the printer, all the time. That's just kind of how the approvals process works, because like someone like Eric Mona does approvals of every book, but he doesn't have time uh, to do them well in advance, let's say, because he's so busy. I don't know how he exists. Like he is so busy all the time. And so he will generally come in approvals pretty late in the process. And normally his changes are very small and minor and like they're just little fixes. But sometimes we do end up with like, oh, this needs captions on all these things. And it's the final day of the process. Or, oh, these captions need to go away. It's the final day of the process. Uh, Hopefully for me, I try to leave those things to the end of the editing period, not the end of the approvals period, which is after I'm supposed to be done with my job. But there are times where we make really last minute changes, like the infamous uncommon typos in Lost Omens Ancestry Guide. That was made during at probably 8 o'clock at night on a Friday, which is why it's typoed, because the person who entered it in was very tired. And so it can actually be dangerous to be doing those kind of things in
It's just
my
an
dream life.
uncommon problem. That's all.
Exactly. In my dream life, we would not be doing approvals that late. But sometimes it's just, sometimes the schedule is just relentless and it gets away from you. Yeah, that example is an unfortunate uh, unfortunate illustration of when the approvals process rears its ugly head. Normally it's seamless and you would never ever know that anything ever changed. But yeah, occasionally, that's just a little peek into the way publishing works. Sometimes it doesn't work the way you want. Sometimes things happen really late at night on the very last possible moment and everyone's worked another hour or two past where they wanted to go home, and sometimes things are a little wacky, but um, it's one of the quirks of the industry. I think any publishing job, you're going to have similar kind of wacky stories like that.
So, as a senior editor, do you have any like advice for people who are just like getting into writing or editing like Pathfinder, Starfinder books?
Just
Yeah,
teach your goodies in general, really.
Yeah.
yeah. I think my biggest piece of advice for people who are just getting into it is self-publish your stuff. Like there are freelancers who we have contacted who have never had published work before, but they have an itch page and they have their one-page RPGs on there, and you can at least look at the quality of their writing and see how interesting their ideas are, even if it's something really small. One of our freelancers, when I first found out about them, all they had was some poetry on their itch, but I knew that they had done like game design before, and it was like, you're clearly a good writer, you clearly have good ideas, and they ended up working for us and now are one of our like awesome, most trusted freelancers. So really just having work that people can see, because that's going to really get you in the door more than anything else.
Yeah.
That's why you
Low-key.
should use Pathfinder Infinite.
Actually, I forgot about Pathfinder in Starfinder Infinite. That is a great place to put things now that actually
I
exists.
cannot wait to put something up on Pathfinder Infinite for the first time.
Nice.
It's either going
It's
to be
a
my
feel.
personal project or me and James's personal project, which is James. You want to
Yeehaw Cowboy.
is Yeehaw Cowboys in the Wild West, which we just kind of placed vaguely in Arcadia,
Awesome.
vaguely somewhere there.
Awesome.
He's,
I can't
he's
wait.
somewhere over there.
No, I've had a good friend, Tabletop Obscura, do some
Mhm.
co-writing projects. I could definitely say releasing stuff on Infinite feels amazing when you finish up a writing project and you're like, oh, dying. And then you're like, oh, wait, hold on. No, I got two more. I'm back to the...
Yeah. No, Infinite is so cool. I'm really glad that exists now, as a way for people to put their stuff out there. It makes me happy. And I've seen some fun things. I haven't really gotten to dive in yet, but I've seen a handful of fun little products on there. I've started writing something for myself, and I don't know if I'll ever actually finish it. I started writing a uplifted bear equivalent, which is, Starfinder has uplifted bears. And I started writing an awakened bear for Pathfinder second edition. We'll see if I ever finish it. Nobody else is allowed to do this.
This is your thing. You're the bear person.
It's a work in progress. No, that's, if somebody else does it, it's totally fine. I won't be offended. But
Actually, there is a bear adventure. I'm so sorry, Obscura,
no,
but I'm gonna
I
reference
saw
this.
that.
I was helped. I didn't get. I helped a little bit in just like coming up with some of the story. Like, it's all 100% Obscura. But we were talking, and we were like, oh, Avi's gonna love this. I think we even threw in a reference to you somewhere in the bounty, but
I need to
then
check
I
that
also
out.
referenced to Big Bumble because Age of Ashes.
Excellent.
Big Bumble.
Excellent. Yeah, I did see that there was a bear related product on there, and that made me extremely happy. Some kind of bear adventures. I'm not sure if that's the same one that you're talking about.
It is, yeah.
But
That's the
yes.
one I helped. Well, not helped. I just gave a lending hand. Like I said, it was 100% Obscura's like work.
Yeah, I need to check that out. I saw it, was like, oh my God. And then I was in the middle of the workday, and so didn't do anything about it, and then forgot. But now that I remember it, I need to go check that out.
Australian time is fun.
Yeah.
If you can't pet bears, why are they so friend shaped?
Exactly. I'm always happy to have bears in games, and especially ways that bears are in games without you killing them.
Like
That
a mount or
is-
something.
Oh my god, bear mount is a great idea. Anytime
Legend of
you can
Korra.
befriend a bear. Yeah.
This is when we'd usually start to wrap things up. So, I'm gonna go into our final questions and then
Yeah.
our fact of the day. What is your overarching message to the viewers? Like anything, one message to get out there into the world.
Oh man. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Make gay books. Make your books gayer.
Yes.
That's right.
I am
We need
always-
everything. Lord of the Rings, we need more gay.
I need to hang
Yes.
up my pride flag. It's gonna go right there.
Excellent.
I
Excellent.
have a small one hanging up, but I really need to eventually buy. I gotta get a big one. Just drape it everywhere.
There's nowhere in your room to put it.
I could take down what is some non-needed artwork. No, those are all essential. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's my one piece of advice for the world. Make your books more gay.
Fact of the day. So, I was told that you really like bears,
Yes.
so you might already know this one. Polar bear fur is actually clear and their skin is black.
Yeah, I did know that, but I appreciate it anyway because you're bringing the bear facts to the masses. It doesn't need to be for me; it's for the world.
I'm
now
looking
everybody
up
knows.
shaved polar bear.
Oh, man.
Editor's note, throw an image.
Oh my god, your face looks horrified.
I'm Googling it now. I don't even know what
It's
that looks
so
like.
wrinkly.
Oh, I've seen shaved bears before. They don't look like bears. They look like bats on four legs, to be honest.
You know,
what
they
they
weren't
look like?
meant to be
They
without
just
fur.
look like bigger chihuahuas.
Oh, it's so weird.
The fur is important. It exists for a
The
reason.
fur makes them cute. Without it, they look like a
It makes-
like one of those like
Think about it,
cats with
think
like
about it.
no hair on it.
It makes perfect sense that their fur is clear and that their skin is black, right? Because clear fur allows the light to pass through easily without the cold, right? And then the
Yeah.
black fur easily allows that heat to be absorbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess so.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, that's a picture of a panda bear with only the ass shaved off. That's great.
I saw that too.
Did you
I
know
know-
pandas are real bears? Because a lot of people don't know that. That's my
No,
fun
of
fact
course
of the
they're-
day. A
they're-
lot of
Wait,
people
they're-
do not know that.
They are real bears, or they aren't.
are. They are indeed
Oh,
real
okay.
bears.
Yeah,
They're
why
very
wouldn't they be
closely
real
related.
bears?
Panda bear? I mean,
I know,
It's in the
but
name.
it's okay. Well, my fun fact isn't as good of a fun fact.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that didn't know.
Somebody just finally like cracked the case. There's like, I always knew it. All right, we just needed
It
it.
was a bear the whole
No,
time.
okay. I have a real fun fact about pandas, which is guaranteed
Alright.
something that people don't know.
They're
So
black and white.
pandas are black and white. No, pandas have black and white as camouflage, and you might look at this panda and you'd be like, "How on earth is this camouflage?" It really sticks out,
You
but
don't-
it's not meant to camouflage the adults. It's meant to camouflage the cubs because what they do is they put their cubs at the very top of a tree, and then the mom will go and eat for days at a time because they require so much food in order to produce milk. And so she will leave her cubs at the very, very top of these trees. And if you're standing on the bottom looking up, the white blends in with the sun and the black blends in with the tree branches. So from the ground, a baby panda at the top of a tree is basically invisible. That's my
Another
fun
Google
fact.
search.
No.
Well, shit.
Pandas in trees. I want to see. I mean, I believe
Yeah, I
you
thought-
100%, but I just need
I-
to see this for myself.
Yeah, the coloration was always weird because don't they spend most of their time in like bamboo forests with a bunch of
Yep.
green around them? But that makes sense actually.
Yeah, I watched a PBS nature documentary about this, and that is where it's at. PBS Nature
Always
is the best
PBS
show on
Nature.
television.
Nature documentaries in general are
You ever
mint.
watch PBS Kids with like the wild crats and Super
Yes.
Science Kid?
Wild crats.
I grew up on the Crap Brothers.
Oh,
Zaboomafoo?
Yep.
Oh,
That was
I
my shit.
personally like the mini game they had on the website where you could race the other robot cheetahs.
Okay, I don't know if Avi knows this one, but I'm sure you two know it. You remember Fetch with Ruff Ruffman? The orange dog?
I
Yes.
do.
Oh,
Like,
I
That
might
might
be
have been-
slightly too old for that.
Yeah, I don't know how old you are, but
I'm
we're
29.
Oh, okay. So we're
So
like
about a decade.
just under like a generation below you. Then.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're technically Gen Z.
Nope, I'm a young millennial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And finally,
You're so close to our gang.
I know.
finally, it's our turn to roll out the red carpet for you. You got a camera in front of you and 3 other cameras in front of everybody else. Tell the people what you're doing and where they can find you.
By what I'm doing, what do you mean? Do you mean like what I'm doing with my work or what?
What crimes?
Yeah, let's focus on work that you're currently working on that you can tell us within the whole
Yeah.
Paizo thing.
Sure. Right now, I am working on Pathfinder Lost Omens Knights of Last Wall. And so check that out when it comes out next year. And you can find me on Twitter at Legalize Goblins. That name always gets a laugh from someone. And I see Barat was chuckling to himself.
Oh, I'm already following you. Okay,
Such
there
a
we go.
good name.
Legalize
Thank you.
goblins.
That one is one of those thoughts that come to you very late at night.
That does definitely sound like a late night thought. Like, Twitter handle, it's gotta be funny.
Exactly.
Well, the good news is that goblins became legal as a core ancestry now. So
Yes.
we finally got goblin liberation.
I
They're
won.
They're not explicitly described as fucking evil now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I saw the little new plushie that's coming out
Yes.
in
I
the
want the life
summer
size
of-
figure.
I got bullied by Jason Tondro and Katina Davis about not having it. And I still don't have the money for it yet, but it is when I get it, I'm gonna specifically call them back for an episode just to have it in front of me the entire time.
Eric Mona
Just a-
has one, and it's next to his camera when he zooms. So
Oh.
whenever you zoom with Eric Mona, he's got the goblin right here.
There
What
goes
happened to my
James's camera.
Somebody else is gonna have to do the outro.
Oh boy.
Upside down cat.
James, what was the
Wait, wait,
outro?
wait.
You do it every time.
Yeah, I know.
This
I'm
is
getting
going
there.
badly. This is going
We'll edit
badly.
it.
All right, you heard
There we
them.
go.
You heard them. You heard Avi. Go follow
Okay.
him on Twitter at Legalize Goblins. All right.
It was so annoying because I was really looking interested in like getting one of those goblins, and then it was announced that there's 2 kobolds coming out of the same kind. I was just like, I can't afford all of them.
Listen,
No.
we were coming back from watching a movie, and this guy James, he's in the car talking to me about this goblin. And he's
Oh
like,
my God.
"Oh, this goblin!" As we're driving back from the movie theater, he's talking to me about this goblin.
You have no idea how badly I need it.
They're pretty awesome. They apparently, according to Eric, take up more space than you'd expect.
I'll make the space. All right, I got a nice chair waiting for them just right there.
Oh, it's gonna dwarf that chair.
I'll make it work.
All right, Avi, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you
Oh, yeah.
so much for having me. This has been fantastic.
Yes, and thank you viewers for staying this long, and just thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, of course. Subscribe to the Deadly D8
We
Patreon.
don't even post these on YouTube. There
We
is no
do.
subscribing.
We do post these
Yes,
on
we
YouTube.
do through Deadly DX channel.
Oh, through okay. I thought you were talking about our channel. My bad.
No, we
Yeah,
do.
Go do that.
Why do you think we do this, Barat? What? We're gonna talk about this later.
You're getting a stern talking to.
No. Oh,
But yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you guys. See you later.
Bye.